Please welcome Sarah McKenna.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you, Zeit, for having me. This is a highlight of our fall to come to the Extract Conference. I'm very happy to be speaking this year. As Shane said, we're very interested in the role of browsers. Sequentum has been a scraping platform with our own custom browser inside for over a decade. We've been around 17 years, and we're very entertained to see this focus on browsers and this idea of this sort of holy grail that the browser is going to be able to do all of this autonomous work, right? 2025 was supposed to be the year of AI agents, right? We've seen all of this funding go into browser solutions, browser base, browser use, this sort of idea of browser infrastructure, and we're sort of tickled pink by this, right? Because as you all know, right, the loading a full browser is actually the last thing you want to do. It's very expensive. But then now, more recently, you have Firecrawl raised $15 million. They have some JavaScript rendering capabilities. Tiny Fish doesn't talk about being a scraping platform. They're more of a web automation platform, but they just raised $47 million. And then you've got this, totally hilarious valuation of Chrome, right? When Perplexity said, I'll put my hand up to buy the Chrome browser when maybe it was going to be spun off by Google. And they put a price on it of $34.5 billion. And then, of course, just as you learned earlier, right, the Atlassian acquisition of the browser company for over $600 million, right? The promise is that, and I don't know what's happening with the layout of these slides, unfortunately. I think it's not Mac friendly, but the dream is to, take the browser, which is the eyes and the ears of these AI agents, wrap it around this intelligent AI and the LLM, and you're going to have suddenly these autonomous workers, the end of human work, right? But in reality, it's not really, adding up. There's small discrete use cases that are working well. There's, more simple, isolated examples that you can get good value out of. But, we've seen, major leaders in the industry like, Meta's Jan LeCun saying, I'm not interested in LLMs anymore. This is too simplistic reasoning. Apple saying, and, mentioning in their paper the illusion of thinking, showing, evidence-based tests that they've done when you add in too many variables, the LLM, it's not actually reasoning, right? So they couldn't get what they required in terms of production grade quality out of it. The MIT study, I'm sure you've all heard from the companies that they queried, 95% had failed to realize value from Gen AI investments. And then, of course, Mira Murati's results this month, Thinking Machine Labs, she put a paper out about how to basically put out an LLM that's going to have the same answer every time. But unfortunately, the accuracy problem is still there. So it wasn't as exciting as we all hoped. Right? You can't really talk about this without talking about, the browser being sort of the interface between scrapers and crawlers and the bot blocking as well, right? With the explosion of AI scrapers and AI-related scraping and crawling, the bot blocking out there has never been more ferocious. And effectively how they block, right? This content is intended to be open and accessible to human beings, so anyone with a sophisticated scraping platform is not going to be blocked, right? The only way to effectively block a bot is to make it more expensive and slower, and the way you do that is by forcing the use of browsers. So actually, browsers in scraping in general and the orchestration of browsers is something that's really being forced to be much more frequent now. And it's not that it's, helping the publishers who are fighting for their survival. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry these slides are not formatted properly for you to see better. But it's not that they're solving the publisher battle. But again, this sort of browsers seem to be at the center of all of this. Now, with Sequentum, we have an architecture that allows you to simply switch back and forth between a full browser and a parser. We're able to establish that handoff with the website, get past the bot blocking, and then do the following 1,000 requests or whatever with a parser. So it's very efficient. Parsers are more reliable. They're lighter weight on the website. And then when you need to, you fall back to the browser, and it is something that we highly recommend, this hybrid approach. Where again, we look at a model, something like using browser-based or browser use for scraping, and just think, wow, that's really expensive and brittle, and I don't know why anyone would want to do that. And then the other thing to talk about also, you can't really talk about browsers and blocking and efficiency without talking about what Cloudflare is doing. They have pioneered a bunch of different standards efforts to try and change sort of the internet economy and try and get the bots to actually pay the websites for the scraping. They're trying to set up internet toll booths. So one of the early examples of this is the WebBot Auth effort, and they have announced a partnership with BrowserBase to give them privileged access to sites and to basically not trigger the bot blocking when the browser is announcing itself as a browser-based agent. So that's very interesting. There's this question for us of establishing that identity versus having reliable data collection, right? We're not sure that this is the right approach. Of course, there's intellectual property exposure risks, right? There's a meme that's been traveling around data industry circles this month, which is, you don't ask a woman her age, you don't ask a man his salary, and you don't ask a data aggregator what their sources are. Right, but if we're actually going through Cloudflare to announce ourselves, or our customers who are using our platform are doing so, they're basically effectively giving up all their IP to Cloudflare, who also has their own Cloudflare workers, and a lot of questions there. So there's these standards battles, and I know Sanaya from Zeit is going to be talking about the regulation landscape later today. We're very active with a group called the Alliance for Responsible Data Collection, and there's another group in the scraping industry called Ethical Web Data Initiative. But basically, there's this surge in the IETF, which is the internet standards body that is responsible for the technical standards. So they publish the robots.txt standard, the HTTP standard, standards on encryption, and there's this push right now to sort of stand up these toll booths and create sort of gatekeepers for data collection. And there's a lot of people from Cloudflare that are leading this. So there's 3 different groups worth mentioning. AI Prefs, which is a great idea, right? It gives content creators a way to communicate preferences on what happens with their data. There's a pay-per-crawl draft charter, and then of course there's this WebBot Auth charter, which the internet draft architecture is something that Cloudflare has defined, and we probably need an alternate to that doesn't go through Cloudflare. And then these groups, even though they operate with Chatham House rules, you can see in the public listservs and the discussions, they've sent out the lists of the participants, and it's interesting because there's actually very few publishers in here. It's more represented by the lawyers of the companies whose business models are going to be disrupted by this, right? Google, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, a lot of the WAF vendors like Cloudflare, and then of course there's open internet advocates. But it's a very interesting area to stay on top of. Certainly new standards are coming, and it's worth getting active in your industry coalitions to make sure that whatever comes out of this is something that we're all aligned on. But in a nutshell, right, this holy grail of, intelligent browsers that are able to harness AI and go out and do work to be able to navigate the internet and interact with websites and fill forms and do all of this automatically. This is something that is open to all of us still. It is a blue ocean. We have the limitations in the LLMs that we're well aware of. There's been a lot of examples today on, ways to work around those limitations. The market opportunity is obviously very large, and there's a lot of active experimentation. Sequentum feels really privileged by the caliber of our customers. We're able to see what some of the most advanced data-driven and AI firms are doing. And it's kind of fascinating. I mean, really, everyone is still experimenting. So I just went on Friday to the Future of Finance and AI conference at Cornell. It's very academic, a lot of students and professors, but also a lot of the big leaders in data and AI and finance, which as an industry, has a bigger ROI than anyone else to get this right. And they're really, and the thing that really, really struck me was they are still experimenting. And they're experimenting so broadly. One CDO of a very large hedge fund said, I'm not going to name the cloud vendor, but they had maxed out the scale capability of one of these, sort of infinite scale cloud repository vendors, and they had moved away from them as a result. And yet, they weren't really, they were just very deep in experimentation. They didn't have sort of, ROI results from everything that they were doing. The quants, we have a lot of quants as customers, and quant funds, they do algorithmic trading based on live data feeds, and web data is a big piece of that. And the sort of the heads of systematic trading are pulling their hair out and calling us up and saying, I don't know what to say, this AI hype, these portfolio and research managers are telling me that I should just be able to, get this data on the fly, and all of this stuff should be totally automated. And I can't explain to them that, like, the level of accuracy, it's not okay. Even 97% is not okay. Like, we need extremely high quality, reliable data that's, we're sure that it's accurate. And, they're asking us to help them do POCs and give them evidence of, the accuracy gap. It's amusing to us. The last thing I'll mention is our corporate customers. The most interesting thing happened in the last quarter. We had one of our very large brands come to us during renewal and say, we need you to attest in your agreement that you are not going to use AI in scraping, because we don't trust the accuracy, and this data is driving our business decision making, and also because we don't think that there is a mature enough regulatory framework to deal with this data, AI scrape data, legally. And we need you to attest that you're not going to do this. And so that was very interesting, spawned a lot of discussion on our product team. But these are the kinds of conversations that we're having with some of the biggest customers who are realizing value from data and AI. And so for Sequentum, right, our approach has always been efficiency and governance and reliability, and we're obsessed with compliance and quality and all these good things. We have a low-code platform that allows you to have reusable building blocks of automation. We try to minimize risk and error every step of the way. We have, I heard Adrian from Zeit, demoing yesterday, and he was talking about how they stand up all these expectations. We do the same thing. We have data validation success criteria checking the accuracy of the data every step of the way according to, as many rules as you want to set up. But we're also focused on that browser excellence and being able to scale and having the browsers ready at the moment that you need them. And then, of course, there's productivity enablers. So we have a little magic wand that, instead of pointing and clicking from scratch and creating your agent from scratch, now you can press a magic wand and it'll sort of mock up the agent it thinks you need. And then again, we have the human in the loop that's making sure every step of the way that agent is doing exactly what you need it to do. And the last thing is we have these command templates. Again, the same principle of reusable building blocks of automation. We're incorporating and integrating the intelligent AI capabilities that all these different vendors are coming up with, where they've gone very, very deep on a very narrow use case, and they've come up with something really, really good. We can wrap a command template out of that and incorporate it into all of our automated workflows. So we're excited about that. So the takeaway is, there's billions being invested in this right now, and it's very, very exciting. But that funding isn't mapping yet to fundamentals. That browser opportunity, that holy grail, is still open to all of us. It's a very, very, very exciting time to be involved. The standards are coming fast. I encourage you all to come up to speed and get involved. Make sure your voice is heard, right? As a bootstrapped company, we appreciate being able to learn from all the experimentation that our customers and all these funded startups are doing. We benefit hugely from that. But if you do have a need and you want to work with a company that's going to have absolute zero hype, we are bootstrapped. We are not worrying about demos for boardrooms. We are not going to give you any flashy bling. We are just going to give you the real deal. We're happy to help you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, a couple of questions here. Somebody asked, many publishers are signing on to really simple licensing, or RSL. How does that factor into the conversation around Cloudflare and pay-to-play web scraping?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so basically, I think that there's a lot of different standards that are coming to play, right? There's the IETF standards, which technically I think is a potential big stumbling block. Could bring a lot of change. I think RSL is an interesting idea as well, right? If they put out standard licensing, that should make it a lot easier. There's RSS, which companies like the New York Times or Reddit, right? It may be their data is already time stamped, and it probably benefits less from that structured scraping workflow. Like that could make a lot of sense to come up with an RSS standard and just have people license that way, sort of whole site data. And then I think just yesterday, Cloudflare came out with something else called content signals, which is just about augmenting the robots.txt to allow you to specify, and you can read about it on the Cloudflare site, but there's a lot of efforts to address the fact that the sort of internet economy, the ad-based internet economy, has really collapsed. And it's in all of our interests to make sure that we shore up those sites and that the internet remains open. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that would work for everyone, but it should work in some cases.
Super, thanks, Sarah. I think we'll finish up there.
Okay, thanks everyone.